LinkedIn has over 1 billion users worldwide, and only 1%, give or take, of them actually create content. So where else can you go and only have compete with 1%?
Derek, how you doing?
Great, Nick.
I'm pumped that you're here on the Seven Figure Advisor podcast. You have so much to share with everyone listening, but great to start with how we met, where we met, which is a cool piece. Derek, Rebel Dads, which is about dads being the best they possibly can. And we met on a retreat at Necker Island, which was an amazing thing. Goodness, coming up to a year.
Yeah, time flies. But yeah, I seem to recall you walking up in your flip-flops and shorts and just, what was it, 4 nights, 5 days on Necker? Really, really pretty amazing experience for sure.
Yeah, certainly was. Let's go back a little bit, if we may, on top of that, because, of course, this podcast is for advisors, with advisors, and everyone's got their own journey, of course, and yours is pretty damn awesome as far as I'm concerned. I have some resonance with you because you've lived and moved in different lot of places, and so have I as well. But I'd love to hear if you would share a little bit more around like the transitions you made from starting the business as an advisor, firm growth, and then moving to the next place where you're at right now, and then how that would intertwine with family. And
yeah, I can try to like hit some of the major transition points through the journey. So I was going to be Indiana Jones. My degree is in archaeology, and turns out I wasn't going to make a whole lot of money with that job and be able to support a family. And
there's only one Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Well, that's it. There's only one. Harrison Ford was not going to give it up. So I did know that I liked working with money. I always found investing and that kind of stuff interesting. And I also really liked working with people and helping people. And so I started as a life insurance agent because I didn't know any better. Not that life insurance agents are bad, but that's how I got recruited into the industry by New York Life. That was it. Like, I didn't know how to spell life insurance or retirement plan or any of that stuff, but I got in and they taught me, like, here's how you sell, here's what we sell, here's how to help clients with their money and all of these things. And it was really, really hard, but I found a lot of success early on. I was the top new advisor for not just New York Life, but every firm in the entire state of Vermont my first year. I don't know how like awesome that is because Vermont's a pretty small state, but I'll take it. I'll take it as a win. And then so for a number of years, probably 7 or 8 years, I did the traditional advisor model, if you will. I came in, I got trained. It was mainly, like product-led sales, but I always had a holistic kind of mindset working with clients. But New York Life trained me really well, supported me really well. I did really well there. I was, top 5% of their advisors nationally. One of the big pivotal moments, and please feel free to ask like probing questions about any of these transitions or periods. But one of the pivotal moments was I started hearing about this thing called AUM because I was a huge annuity producer, a lot of mutual funds, a lot of life insurance. And, my clients were very happy. I was happy. I was able to pay my bills eventually. It was working. But I kept hearing this AUM thing. It started becoming more and more prevalent. And then I remember asking the annuity wholesaler of all people for my zone, what is this? And should I do this? His name was John. And I'll never forget, he gave me, because his compensation obviously was tied to my production.
Yeah.
And he gave me just such an honest, direct response. He's like, if you're going to do it, and he explained what it is. Like, this is AUM versus annuities. This is how it works. He's like, if you're going to do it, go all in and do it. So he was very supportive. He didn't try to lead me one way or the other. He was just very open about how to, and I really appreciate that because he could have easily said, oh, that's terrible. Never go that way. Never do it. And so I explored it a little bit, got the right licenses so I could be an IAR. And then I decided to switch my entire business model to an AUM led one at first. Like that's where I really focused on. So my annuity production dropped, my income dropped in half the first year I made the move, which was really hard and unexpected. I didn't realize that's what was going to happen initially. But then I started having like recurring revenue start to come in, which was pretty nice. It's funny because I also at the exact same time, within months of making the AUM transition, I also had my kid, my son, and I bought a large commercial office building and moved my office into it, and we had to restore it. So all within a few month period, these things happened. Pretty big transition. So it was a really tough couple of years.
Wow. Can I go back to the first levels of success at New York Life? Size of Vermont notwithstanding, and you you did well there, but then also the next bit as well. What would you say at that stage was some of the keys that allowed you to get that level of success, like top in the company or near the top in the company at that point? What were some of the keys there?
So I was willing to do what most people were not willing to do. And I just, in other words, I was willing to work more and
Mm,
harder. I worked a lot of hours. I'm not saying that was smart, but the hard work did pay off.
yeah.
I was willing to drive anywhere and talk to anybody to write business. I got really good at asking for referrals. I also virtually got rid of illustrations. Now, obviously, when you sell a product, you have to accompany it. Like there's regulatory and legal obligations where you have to provide these things.
Mhm.
But when I say I got rid of illustrations, is that I did not rely on the illustration to be the sales tool. I relied on the relationship, really getting to understand the client, learn about their hopes, dreams, and goals for the future, have deep conversations, establish, good rapport and trust, and then be able to condense the complex. I could take a 40-page illustration and then explain to them in simple terms so they could understand it and be comfortable and confident in the purchase they were making. And always, you always back it up like, hey, here's all of the information. Take it, do whatever you want with it. So I found those things worked really, really well. Like one thing that's kind of funny is that a lot of times, so like in this industry, I don't know if it's as much as it is today, but definitely 20 years ago, the expectation was you wear a suit and tie every day. At minimum, slacks, button down shirt and tie, and just no
Yeah.
coat. I hated it. And so pretty early on, and maybe this is just because of the area. I mean, I worked in a rural area, a lot of farmers, blue collar, hardworking folks. So when I showed up in my suit and tie, they'd be like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Right? Like I did not fit the scene. And so very quickly in a lot of meetings, I would ask within like the first 5 minutes, I'm sitting there at their kitchen table. I'm like, "Do you mind if I take my tie off and get rid of my sport coat?" And every time they're like, "Yes, please do. We don't want you having that on." And that like broke down these barriers so quickly. They're like, "Hey, Derek's kind of a cool guy. All right, I'm feeling better talking with this guy." And it was a very subtle thing, but it actually was quite impactful in helping just build that relationship and the trust and everything that is necessary.
Was the focus on building the relationship a instinctual thing for you? Was it part of that good training you said you received? How would you say that came
I'd
about?
say the training helped bring it out in me.
Yeah.
As I said, like before starting in the industry, I actually for a few years I was a counselor at an at-risk treatment center for teenage youth. And so learned really quickly how to actually have deep, meaningful conversations with people to help them work through really hard things. And so I just started applying that to my sales process. And I made plenty of mistakes. Don't get me wrong. Like the one of the very first sales meetings I ever had, a sales trainer was in the meeting with me and I had invited my friends. I didn't have many friends because I had just moved to Vermont. I invited this couple in about the same age, and the sales trainer made her cry and pissed the husband off to the point where like we're out of here. I'm like okay, so this model's not working. Maybe we should try just having good old fashioned relationships with people and see how that develops.
Oh man, wow, that's amazing. But it never goes away. It's always that. I mean, that's such a big anchor, right? You can see it everywhere. Anywhere where anyone's got any level of success, it's because it's a relationship focus. And you can take away the technical skills or the particular area of expertise that they have, and it always comes back down to that relationship
It
first
does.
approach. And
It does.
that's the anchor for everything. If I think about clients I work with, in fact, there's one particular wholesaler I work with that often, if he gets into a scarcity mindset, it always comes back to thinking about his firm's product versus the other product. It's like, oh no, the renewal rates are going the wrong direction. And it's like, it's
It's
first
funny
things
you bring that up
first.
because there's a couple wholesalers that I worked with both at New York Life and outside of New York Life over the years. I gave them virtually all my business because not their products, not their company reputation, but
Right,
because they actually cared about my
right.
practice and
Yep.
we actually had like relationships outside of work. We were that close with each other and that's what mattered to me. And then after the relationship was established and I knew they were there for the right reasons, then I'm like, okay, tell me why you're a company, right? Like show me that you are the right company. But I wasn't even interested in pursuing it if the relationship wasn't there.
But it's funny how you, even if you know that, you can fall out of that mindset if there's something going on that's significantly emotional or there's just a lot of stress going on. But it's just
Yep.
that's how we come back to it. Your conviction to move to AUM, you mentioned the story with another wholesaler, a New Zealand wholesaler. Did that primarily come from that, the way that he would share that with you? But you must have taken that piece of information and then overlaid it with like, okay, this is the thing I want to do, because you said you went all in, right? And so like, and also in my experience, I would say as well that there's this funny thing that happens. I talk from a father point of view because I can't talk from a mother point of view, but I know that how it feels like when you've got new kids come in and like you get this kind of supercharge of extra
Oh, for sure.
fight and protect energy as well. So it seems like, wow, you do all that stuff at once, but it's almost actually, there's lots of stories like that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, I mean, for me, like obviously that wholesaler's feedback was really important, but this was, 15 plus years ago. Like I wasn't a CFP yet, but the writing was starting to be on the wall about like this move to more holistic financial planning, assets under management, kind of what clients were looking for. It took me a while. I spent probably 1 to 2 years really kind of just playing around with the idea like, what does it mean? What's a CFP? What do they do? And really, it all just kind of came together. And part of it was like, hey, the puck is headed this way. But also, part of it, honestly, is that a commission only business is really stressful because you're constantly trying to sell to pay the bills. Now, yes, are there some renewals and trails with life insurance and other products? Of course, there are. But for at least for me and the way I wanted to run my practice, the AUM model was really appealing, both from an income perspective, but also kind of what clients were. It was a competitive advantage as well, right? Because like I could do more and sell more and have more sophisticated solutions than the
Yeah,
person just as a registered rep selling mutual funds and life
right,
insurance.
right.
So part of a growth strategy as well.
Mm. That's a really important distinction as well, because there's always two sides to a coin, right? And so if you've got a particular direction to go in, you've got to stop doing something in order to do something. And sometimes the leverage comes from, I'd like to stop doing something, right? I'd like to remove the fact I've got to continually sell. But you also have to go, okay, what am I going to be able to replace it with? Otherwise, you kind of create this vacuum. So it's like, okay, well, I've got a AUM model I can focus on. I can then take away the pressure of having to sell all the time. But the next level up is what you said, Derek, is that I can then actually reuse that time to think about how I can provide extra value and grow the depth of my capabilities, capacity within the
Yeah.
practice to give back even more as well. And I think that's a real important point that can be easily missed, because am I using the time to reinvest back? Said differently, I had someone talking about AI recently, ChatGPT, and their comment was, "Oh, I'm just worried that it makes us all a bit dumber." And it was just a off the cuff soundbite essentially, but you could make a case for that. But for me, it depends what you use your time for, right? How do you reinvest that time? And we know that time is our most important resource, and so if we're choosing to, I haven't got to do that anymore, so I'm just going to watch a bunch of Netflix. It's very different than how am I reinvesting it to create the next level up, that level of thinking that wouldn't exist before. It's worth connecting those things together because it has to be part of, as you said, the growth strategy overall.
That's it. Yep. That's it. If you're taking your extra time and just binging Netflix, you probably are getting dumber.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Exactly. Exactly. It's always the part of the equation that we want to pull together, right? It's like the answer is often, it depends. It's like, okay, if I do that, then what happens
Exactly.
next? So it depends, right? How do you
Exactly.
reinvest it time? So New York Life, relationship focus, AUM, went all in, but did take a little bit of time to figure it out, and then had a crazy couple of years. And then what would you say after that? What was the next big catalyst event or a big decision you made after that?
Going virtual was the next big one. And so after a couple of years of running AUM and whatnot, an opportunity came up for me to run a national program with another agent at New York Life selling a very complicated life insurance plan to credit unions. And this guy was really good at sales because I ended up moving from Vermont to Wisconsin to work with this guy, uprooted my family.
Yeah.
And within a month of moving, we happened to actually be invited to his wedding. It was in Austria. And he pulls me aside in the parking lot one day and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm moving to New Jersey." And I'm like, "Shit, I just moved my family across the country for you to run this program and now you're moving." And so very quickly, I'm like, "Well, this sucks and I'm not going to work with you anymore." And then it was like, all right, do I move back? Because I still had my physical office in Vermont. I had all my clients in Vermont. I had
Mhm.
staff in Vermont. I'm like, do I move back or do I try to make a go of this from Wisconsin? And so for like the first year, 18 months, I was on a plane every 2 to 3 weeks going back to Vermont to work with clients in person and couch surf. And it was brutal. And I'm missing time with like my son growing up. Like my wife sending me text videos of my son doing X, Y, or Z instead
Yeah.
of me being there. And eventually I just got really tired. Got a lot of sky miles, but I got really tired of the whole thing. And I'm like, why can't I do this remotely? And it was funny that one of the very first remote meetings, I think the very first one we tried, because we had no idea what we were doing, is that my office manager in Vermont had this married couple, these clients come into my office there. And then she put Skype on her computer and turned the camera and the monitor around so they could
Nice.
see it. And I was in Wisconsin and we did a meeting that way and we did business. I'm like, oh shit, this works. I didn't have to fly to do this. And so then we started figuring out, well, how else can we do this? How can we make this better? What cameras do we actually need? What mics do we need? How do we like do all this stuff? And do they have to come to the office or can they just do it from their house? And so this was like in 2013. So that was a big one because it allowed me to stay home more with my kid. It also allowed me to scale the business that much more quickly because I could get a ton of my time back.
Yeah.
If you think about it, if you just saved an hour 5 days a week for commuting, 50 weeks a year, that's 250 hours. Like, okay, great. Well, what does that mean? 250 hours is just over 6 40-hour work weeks that you can
Insane.
save. And that's
Yeah.
just one
It's
hour a
insane.
day, right? So how many people
Yeah.
waste more than that time in commuting from meetings or to the office or whatever? And so I was all in. And a lot of people at New York Life are like, yeah, that's never going to work. And then I was still top producing. I'm like, and then they're like, how are you doing this? What do you mean you don't drive to see your clients anymore? And so that was another big transition. I did that. I still work virtually to this day for my firm because it was so much easier.
Talk about how opportunities come up that end up being opportunities that you didn't expect from the original opportunity. In a world, right? It's like you move there for something else, but it actually leads you to well, you get a forcing
Exactly.
function. If you just still were in Vermont, you probably wouldn't have done that in that same timeline, at least.
Probably not. Like I went through a really dark, bad time because of that whole business blow up.
Mm, mm.
But the silver lining is that things actually ended up a lot better because of it. And so, yeah, it depends on how you react to a situation. I could have just folded up shop and given up
Yeah.
or dealt with the adversity and made lemons out of lemonade. And that's exactly what we did.
Gets me fired up, Derek. Yeah, I mean that's it. You see that so often, right? I mean, it's so trite to say, but it's so true, though, right? It's like it's not about what happens; it's what you do with it. It's what really
Yep.
matters.
You can't control what happens, but you can control what happens next.
Right, absolutely. And if you just keep doing that, it's really hard to beat someone who doesn't give up, right?
It really is. Yes.
and the person you're beating is really just yourself, right? I'm like, do I stop or do I carry on? It's like that's it. You set
Yep.
out to do something, one or two things happens. Either you get the result you want or you give up. I mean, that's it.
That's it. That's exactly it. So just don't give up.
Especially as we're playing long timelines. You mentioned back in the early days being good at referrals. I like this question, and I often ask it in this podcast because I feel like it's so ingrained for advisors. Referrals, I think about them as favorable introductions rather than referrals. I mean, there's this is interesting because there's a lot of like depth around that language. What would you say is important? How do you think about referrals from perhaps that early success and how you think about now or how it evolved? Like, what's your philosophy on them?
So I'm not looking for new clients right now, given that I'm focused on a technology company, which we can get to in a little bit.
Yeah.
But even that, I don't know if referrals are what they used to be. I think things have changed in the way that people are finding and consuming financial advice. So like when I started, like literally, like we had this paper fact finder where we would part of the fact finding thing was, hey, give us the names of 3 to 5 of your best friends or family members. And it was so cheesy. And I always felt crappy doing it. And so what I did, I actually just did a post on LinkedIn about this recently. You should go look at it. I went to Staples and I bought 50 carbon copy order forms, blank order forms. So it could have been for any business to buy anything. And then I brought those to every meeting. And I would only do this after the client and I had gone through our discovery process and were like, yes, we want to do business with you. We'll buy this life insurance. We'll do this rollover, whatever. And this is back in the day of physical applications, paper applications. I would be doing the application and I'm like, I need your driver's license. And I'm going through all these stupid questions. And they're kind of sitting there like, what the hell do I do while this guy fills out paperwork? And so what I started doing is I'm like, here's this, I gave him this carbon copy. I'm like, listen, I would love to work with more people like you. And so what I would ask is that if you could write the names of 5 to 10 people that you think could potentially benefit from the same type of work that we've done. Be like, listen, I'm not asking you to know if they need anything or not. That's not your job, but just 5 to 10 people you think that would benefit from at least having a chat with me. And be like, write their names, their phone numbers down. And then after they did that, be like, by the way, I ripped off a carbon copy and I gave it to them. Please contact everyone on this list and let them know I'm going to be calling them. And if there's anyone on this list that does not want to hear from me, just please let me know and I will not bug them. And it worked every single time. Every single time it worked. It was beautiful. People just like, they're like, oh yeah, hey Derek, so and so said you'd be calling. Happy to meet. When do you want to meet? Like the sales call was like 8 seconds because they're ready to buy from me already. It was just awesome. And then like the people that didn't want to like meet with me, like I already knew, so I didn't bother calling them. So my cold calling like hit list was really good. It was really warm.
Mm.
It also made the people referring feel comfortable. Like, oh, Derek's not going to bug these people right off the bat. Like they're going to give me an opportunity to let them know. And I only did it after they bought from me. So they're going to say like, hey, we just bought this from Derek. He's a great dude. You should chat with him at least. And so
Yes,
that worked really, really well, Nick, for a number of years. That was the best way for me to drive business. I don't know if it works today. Like I'm not doing it, so I can't say for certain, but people consume things digitally. Like back then, like advisors especially weren't really on social media, didn't really have websites for a number of reasons. And so now people are looking for a different way to like come in and start to get to meet and work with an advisor. I suspect that the referral thing could still work if you tried to digitize my process a little bit, but it definitely has changed from back in the day when I was doing it.
Yeah, no doubt. I love what you said, Dora, because in that way you're still leveraging the relationship. You're giving the client that just bought something from you an opportunity to help, but also mitigate their downside by letting them know that they'll contact them first, which is really, really cool from a psychological point of view. Tell us what you're doing now with Couplr and what you're most excited about there.
Well, one transition before I did, well, actually, I did this the same time I started Couplr. So I was at New York Life working virtually, doing the AUM model. I had my CFP. It was working, but it was challenging because the way I was wanting to do things was not part of their general mold for 11,000 agents. So there was, especially from a marketing perspective, it was challenging at times. They were very good to me in New York Life, a lot of good people there, but it was just challenging given how I wanted to run my business. So eventually, and this happened all within the same couple months, I started a technology company and then went fully independent. So left New York Life, started my own RIA, dropped all my insurance licenses, and started a technology startup all in the same couple months. I tend to have like this, I guess. I do like these big things all at once. And I moved across the country. Right.
When
It's
you're
like,
in, you're in, man.
yeah, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. So like I'm really glad I went independent. Again, New York Life was great. They're a great company, great people. But for the model of how I wanted to run a practice from a marketing perspective, planning perspective, investment perspective, it just made more sense for me to go fully independent, which I'm really happy. It's been about 4 years since that happened now. And then also, so Couplr, think of it as like Bumble for insurance and wealth management. It's like a fun, like play on words, like a dating app to connect consumers with the right advisor for them. I've had this idea for probably 10 years. Life happens. And eventually I'm like, all right, I'm going to execute and go see if this thing actually works. And spun up an alpha product real quick. It was ugly, it didn't work well, but just to see if there was any interest. And then we started to get some traction. So we're an enterprise tool now, and we're in different countries. Still early days, still a lot of work to do, but it's been interesting. I still have one foot in the advisory space because I do have my own RIA, and I like right after this podcast, I'm doing a review call with a client. I do have client meetings from time to time, but the majority of my time is working on this technology product. Everything from working with the engineering team to design team to marketing to sales calls to demos, you name it, I'm doing all of it. And it's been quite the experience.
Yeah, no doubt. I know that from what you shared with me in the past, but give us a bit more detail around that, Derek. Because again, going through like kind of the arc of some of the things you shared, which is obviously a very small portion of depth of your experience, but It's intriguing to see how those things go, right? And like knowing how motivation goes up and down, and to keep on going when things aren't going your way and accelerate when things are going right. What is it that you get from Couplr that kind of speaks to you and aligns with who you are and keeps you motivated?
Well, it lets me scratch my entrepreneurial itch.
Mm,
That's for sure. I see a problem that affects a lot of people and I want to solve it. And I think I've got the best darn solution out there to solve it. Like there's two big motivating factors there that kind of like are my North Stars with this. One is too many financial advisors fail. It's really, really hard being an advisor, especially in the early years. And I've
yeah.
seen a lot of good people struggle. I've seen colleagues lose their house. It's really, really hard. And the number one thing all advisors need for success more than anything else is leads. They need better clients. They need warm inbound clients. I'm like, all right, maybe with Couplr, I can fix this a little bit and nudge the percentage in the right direction to help more advisors find success. And then the other side of that coin is money is arguably the most powerful tool that virtually everyone on the planet has access to in some shape or form. Yet there's virtually no education and there's a lot of mistrust or lack of trust. And so I figured, like, if there was a better way to connect people with the right advisor where they could open up and share their financial skeletons and feel really good about it so they can get the education and ultimately the advice they need, that helps people like retire. It helps people send their kid to college. It helps them buy a house, like really meaningful, impactful things in the world. In the trenches every day, like that's the stuff that keeps me motivated and keeps me going.
Well, man, I really appreciate you sharing that stuff. And, one of the big reasons I work with advisors is because of how important it really is. Because ultimately, when it comes down to it, it's people's lives we're talking about. It's their experiences, it's their families, it's what they're able to access. And then there's so much depth there. So I really appreciate it. As we come to a close here, Derek, what might you want to share? I know you're doing some great work with Couplr. I know that's going to have a big impact. You're starting to have one already. What might you want to share or advice you want to give to advisors that are out there right now from your perspective?
Well, I mean, there's a million and one things. I think one thing I wish I would have learned or started doing sooner was my own personal brand and really creating content that allowed people to get to know me and get comfortable with me so they could come in when they were ready to be a client. For years, I was very passive when it came to content. I would consume it, I would never create it. And what's interesting, and I don't know if this is true for all platforms, but for example, LinkedIn has over 1 billion users worldwide and only 1%, give or take, of them actually create content. So where else can you go and only have compete with 1%?
Yeah, that's
Right. And
amazing.
so
Yeah.
getting your voice out there, like we talked about, like how there's been a shift from referrals and how people consume
Mhm.
content and find information. And it's online, whether we like it or not. People are using all kinds of digital mediums to find things, and whether it's an advisor or education or whatever. So if you're not there, you're never going to be noticed. So I think doing that earlier on is important. One other thing, I mean, I could ramble forever here, but one other thing that I found really valuable is when you're starting out or even like reevaluating your practice, take a step back and really define what's important to you individually and professionally. I didn't for the number of years. That never was a conversation. It was like, how many whole life policies can I sell, and how many rollovers can I do, and like, that's the wrong thing to track. What my family and I have done for years now is we have physical vision boards where we look at them maybe once or twice a year and update them as we go. And once I was able to define my hopes, dreams, and goals, then I had the right motivation to grow and to pursue a business that I wanted. But it also help me define the type of people I wanted to work with. And like there's that old saying, like you attract your tribe with your vibe. And so when you get clear on all that, like then the business becomes easy because you know who your ideal client is, you know where they are online, you know how to start creating content digitally to engage with them. Your tech stack, your sales process, the products and services you offer, all of that are byproducts of you and then your ideal customer.
I wish I could take all that and just amplify it out so much because that vision piece is just so important. I mean, you wouldn't be able to go on the journey you've gone without like knowing where you're trying to go, right? It's so easy to go forward. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that, but I really appreciate you sharing today, Derek. I know that there's a lot of people that take a lot of value from listening and watching this as well. So I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you overall and the time we spent so far, and I look forward to spending plenty more down the road. Thanks very much,
It's my
Derek.
My pleasure, Nick. Glad to help. And any advisors are free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if they want to chat. Always there to help anybody.
Thank you so much. Take care.